Okay, hello everybody. So yeah, I'm Ernesto Boado. I'm the co-founder of BGD Labs, and this is the first. It happened to be the first session of Aave morning, because after me there will be Emilio also from the Aave side. Today I wanted to talk about first maybe I can talk of what is from where I'm coming from, BGD. As I say, I'm the co-founder of BGD Labs, and we are a team contributing to the Aave protocol, for core development, security, and a bit of basically everything on what relates with the existing Aave protocol, v3, v2, everything around. Coming back to the title of the talk, the objective today is just to tell a bit shortly how it works Aave inside, we could call it inside, and certain details related of how we think about security, and some kind of inside view of this system and its maintenance. So about the team I already mentioned, so we are, I will elaborate later, but Aave is pretty decentralized in terms of organization, following a model that hopefully someday will be similar to Ethereum's. And so our team is called BGD Labs, it's not called Aave, but because we are completely independent, from the founding team, even if I was part of that founding team, we work that way. So, as an overview, first I will show what is Aave at the moment. Then the core of my talk will be of putting two examples of how do we move features of Aave, how do we think about those features, how we evaluate them security-wise, and some other details. And then at the end, we'll talk about the security procedures that we applied on those features and some other things, and how maybe they are a bit different than other systems, or maybe not so different. So about the title of the talk, I think that right now DeFi reached a point on where everything moves relatively fast. In terms of developments, if we compare with early times. I think that it helps that the tooling is completely different than it was in 2018 or 2020, on where technical limitations were actually a thing when you wanted to do something, and especially when you wanted to do something safely. So that definitely has helped a lot, on Aave and its ecosystem being pretty big nowadays. We have new types of, in what relates more with DeFi, we have new types of assets that are appearing all the time, it can be liquid staking tokens or restaking tokens, and some others. This, now at least I have the feeling these LSTs have existed forever, but I think in 2020 they were still an asset class that was growing, and liquid restaking tokens is 1 year old. So, but in terms of size nowadays they are pretty huge. Then it also helps for this speed that nowadays there is factually way more entry points into DeFi than there was back in the days. Back in the days mainly it was Ethereum, and some alternative L1s. Now, rollups, I think it's pretty clear that they got some boost. So you get a lot of Base, Arbitrum, you can name it. But there is real use cases there, and any users entering even digitally to those L2, and not only to Ethereum, and then maybe going to some other place. And well, I mean, the conclusion is that from all the previous new protocols appear every day. maybe looked like it slowed down a bit last year, but like in practice, there is actually a lot of new ideas getting created in production, and well, yeah, a lot of innovation. So yeah, the slow part, which is kind of a joke, is Aave, because I think Aave is quite perceived nowadays as the stable place, like this kind of behemoth. But yeah, maybe it's not so slow, because Aave is in 11 networks at the moment, the V3 protocol with 13 instances. There is also still 3 instances of, this is wrong, there is 3 instances of V2 in 3 networks. Assets there are I put more than 100, but I don't even keep the count at the moment. Aave also has a stable coin. It has cross-chain messaging system. It has a governance system based on storage proofs. Basically you name it, and probably Aave has some infrastructure related with something. So yeah, it's a slow system, but it's pretty big. So yeah, this number is something that I took yesterday. Today I think it's more or less similar, but yeah, Aave is pretty big, with some billions in market size. And well, with this and with all the previous infrastructure, of course, stability is very, very important, and something that, especially on my line of contribution and the team I'm part of, this is kind of the key. We are the technical team that needs to make Aave appear as seamless, and things work completely well behind the scenes. So something that maybe people doesn't, for sure is not so public, is how is the procedure of adding features to Aave, how we decide to add something, to not add it, quite frequently to how we decide to remove them. So in that direction, one of the things is that we believe pretty hardly that all the systems should evolve, because it's quite natural. So the idea of pure immutability is is nice, but even on the base layer, let's say Ethereum, things change over time. That is one of the strengths we think of the Ethereum community. So on Aave we try to kind of reproduce the same, but on the smart contracts layer. So at the same time, obviously, whenever you add new features, or any type of change, well, the attack surface on a protocol, on DeFi protocol like Aave, it increases. So the more you add, the more potential issues that you can have in all senses, but the ones that really matter are security-wise. So something very, very important is when you are the development team of a system like this, is to find a good point of equilibrium of this, because well, you cannot remain too static, meaning you put a system out there and you wait 2 years until you probably die. No, you need to move a bit and continuously, but you need to do it with certain order, or as much order as possible. So yeah, I want to just put the examples of two features that we introduced actually this year, both of them. So because Aave right now is not, the protocol is Aave v3, but technically the protocol that everybody uses, that probably some of you at least use in this room, on chain is right now v3.2. So there was some minor version, then 3.1, 3.2, and some extra coming soon. So yeah, how we do and how we think about those features. So the first one is liquid emotes. I will just explain a bit. Maybe some of you already know what is the Aave emotes, but Aave v3 introduced a mechanism which was called emotes, which comes from efficiency mode. And what that means is that you have listed assets on Aave, but then you could have like each asset could belong to any mode, it was called, which had like higher risk parameters whenever like the assets on that mode were correlated. Like so, the main use case of this, for example, was having ST-ETH, the LST of ETH and ETH on a single mode. So in that case, you could have like quite high risk parameters because they are correlated. Like so, the risk of liquidation is pretty low. And that enables strategies like high leverage or things like that. So what we introduced on Aave v3.2 was what we call liquidity modes. And this is kind of a technicality, but it made quite some difference. Before, like each asset listed on an Aave pool could only be on any mode. Like so, the moment that you add, let's say, ETH in mode 1, it could not be in any other modes. And this was a limiting factor, even if the normal modes like help Aave to grow a lot. Like this was kind of limiting, like especially during this year, like when what I mentioned before, when new assets appear, like the system was not powerful enough to cover all the use cases. Let's say with LRTs. So what we did, like with these liquidity modes, is to allow that each asset could be in multiple modes, which seems like something pretty trivial, but it actually enabled a lot of use cases. So for example, right now there is like an instance in mainnet, which is the Lido v3 pool, which is heavily using like this concept of liquidity modes with subgroups of assets, and each one is for a particular use case. LRTs against LSTs, LSTs against normal assets, stablecoins, you name it. So how do we thought, how did we think, sorry, about the introduction of these liquidity modes? So usually this is kind of, there are some other steps probably, but high level, we think this way. So first we think that if the feature makes sense, because it's not only about introducing technical aspects without thinking high level, how much sense it makes, then we always think on how is the complexity added to Aave, because, well, we are not creating a system from scratch. We are changing the code or something that is like billions size. So the complexity that gets added or not is a deciding factor, basically, even to move a feature or not. And then also we think quite a lot on how difficult and how long will be like the security procedures associated with the feature, which frequently they are different between each other. So in the case of liquidity modes, well, if the feature makes sense, is what I explained before, it really made a lot of sense because Aave v3 was being limited with use cases like liquid staking tokens against others. So yeah, we needed to do something, and the alternatives were not so good in terms of user experience. Then, how much complexity it added this feature to Aave? Not really so much. It really looks like a complete change of paradigm internally, but the reality is that when you go to the details, the changes were not so aggressive. So you could isolate the logic, the storage affected was not so bad, and it was generally a pretty small footprint for the power of the feature itself. And then, the third question on how difficult we estimated the security procedures was that, well, it was pretty review-friendly. That is one of the advantages of Aave, because even released quite some years ago, Aave is quite modular code base. So sometimes this is not so good, but sometimes for the reviews, this is extremely good if you follow, if you do improvements following the same patterns. So this was the case here. The change was relatively isolated and easily understandable, which also work with quite well, with an idea that we practice. That is we try to introduce new security partners and firms all the time. So yeah, of course we work with our typical security partners, like the ones that we trust from a long time ago, but also from time to time we're trying to introduce new people because, well, I mean, you bring fresh ideas and so on, so it makes sense. So, yeah, we evaluated this, and that's it. Like, then, during this implementation, however, like, we always need to think, okay, how powerful we make this feature, how far we go. Like, so, yeah, usually it's very important to understand that it's not about being as generalistic as possible, it's about enabling what you want to enable, and even if you know that you can improve certain things, just stop in there. What I mentioned before of like following similar architectural patterns in a system like Aave is very important, because sometimes just by following like the organization, you will not, let's say, shoot yourself like with an unexpected bug. And also thinking very careful about integrations, like, because Aave is, well, I mean, the users integrating is not end users, it's other protocols, like, so we need to be pretty careful with that. Yeah, the other is like another feature which is quite different in nature, is virtual accounting. This was actually before liquid emotes. And what we hear is that like Aave was operating all the time from inception dynamically in terms of checking, let's say, how much available liquidity there is, using balance off of the tokens. And how it works is like at some point, well, I will pass to the typical questions, but at some point we noticed like that there were more and more exploits related with inflation attacks and any type of manipulations related with balances. So we did like some introspection in the team, like in the protocol. We also involved like extra security researchers, like, and then we decided like to implement this virtual accounting. So yeah, when we analyzed like about the complexity added to Aave, like actually was not so much, mainly because it's kind of incremental defense, like, or we call it defense in depth too, meaning that there is not really much you can destroy like by introducing this. The only thing that could cause is like maybe overprotection of the system, but it's, I mean, of course, if you do it wrongly, not, but it's not so easy like to actually introduce a very big bug, like because of the nature of the logic itself. And then also, yeah, it was review friendly, like the code footprint was relatively small, I would say, which, but it had like high level implications, like because certain invariants of the system that before they were understood by using balance off, like on certain smart contracts, like is not anymore. Now they involve like a storage variable, like which will be the virtual balance. And for that reason, this particular feature, we thought that it was good to have a security context too, like because it's, well, quite non-Aave specific. Like, so in this specific case, like having more eyes and fresh eyes, like it could give value. While in certain other Aave features, like having certain expertise on Aave or a lot of expertise on Aave really gives like way more value than coming from scratch. So yeah, the same as with the liquid emotes. Still, like we did this last question of how far we need to go on this. Like, so yeah, like the main priority here was to make it as non-invasive as possible, the feature. Then evaluating all the effects and like potential consequences that could arise, like because of what I mentioned before, of not being so dynamic anymore, not using balance off, but having internal accounting, and especially like something that is recurring, let's say, challenge like on Aave, is that every time that we do an upgrade of the code, you have production data, like of thousands and thousands of users, like of capital. So you need to be very, very careful, like whenever you reinitialize that data or whenever you do any type of so-called migrations of data. So in this specific case, obviously, this virtual accounting didn't exist before, but the moment that the upgrade happened, you needed like to just initialize like the whole thing. So yeah, yes. To end, like a small overview of I think that maybe the Aave security procedures are slightly different, and yeah, mainly the ecosystem around Aave more than the procedures. So yeah, I will not repeat, but obviously we do the, let's say, typical stuff like testing, review, formal verification, fuzzing, like yeah, you call it. Probably it was done at some point of the chain in Aave. But I would like to highlight this, which I think is a practical example of something that is not so common. Like so in Aave, I say like that we have organizational defense. Like what that means is that, similar as with Ethereum, I think that like the resilience of Ethereum sometimes is because there are so many teams contributing to Ethereum, because there is not really like a voice with full authority, like in the roadmap of Ethereum or like almost any aspect. So yeah, as I say before, like in Aave, we try to achieve the same. Like so, at the moment, Aave is really fully decentralized, controlled by like on-chain governance contracts. Best example is that like, my team like is just engaged with the DAO, like which release certain budget and authorized via smart contract services agreement, let's say. So this natural consequence is that there are multiple also technical independent entities involved with the development of and the security of the protocol. So yeah, it's of course us. There is I put also Certora, which contributes independently on the security side. Even of obviously we collaborate closely. There is also like Aave Labs, and there are multiple others actually. And then even we have also like independent emergency entities, which can be in the shape of multi-sigs or so on for emergency functions of a bug is detected and if the system, let's say, needs to be paused. So yeah, this gives quite a lot of value. Another point is like that all the changes of Aave need to happen via the governance or the 99.9% of them, and they are not even created by the technical team of Aave. Like what we do is review those changes, but at the moment there is like I think regular 4 or 5 entities out there. Some of them are not even so technical, which are creating governance proposals for whatever, like listing new assets on Aave, changing parameters, I don't know, proposing new deployments on new networks, like countless things. Like so, yeah, there is some repository where people just does PRs. We review them. Then there is even another layer of review by Certora, and then they get voted on chain. And if everything goes well, it gets executed on the Aave system. Yeah, right now we are even like trying to decentralize like the organization on GitHub, which is a bit challenging. But so like the Aave protocol lives in this Aave DAO, and progressively the idea is that multiple contributors like will be having the repositories that they maintain, which is associated with the DAO. So it's kind of everything is property of the DAO, and then you have like the maintainers or stewards of that. And yeah, well, I mean, we maybe treat a bit different like like the relation with the security experts. Like so, this is more about like our team. But for example, we like quite a lot like to have continuous communication with when we do security reviews. We are not so much into the business of like giving some code to review and coming back at the end. We prefer just to talk quite a lot with the auditor because it's pretty good both for us and for the auditor to get a better understanding. It's true that also like in some cases certain isolation is desired, but we are quite, I mean, we think quite a lot about these topics. Like so depending on the feature, even maybe we want to have more communication and in some other features not. And yeah, well, we try to put a lot of focus in documentation, which requires like some improvement still. Like, but yeah, we think that one of the problems on the communication between developers and security firms, like, is that well, it's not well explained what the developer is trying to do. So that just creates like a snowball effect on everything else. And yeah, that kind of is an overview. If any question.
Thank you so much, Ernesto. Maybe while Emilio sets up, a quick question from me. So I think Aave is seeing one of the biggest evolutions, which is the first non-EVM deployment of Aave happening. How do you evaluate that type of decision with regards to the framework you presented?
I mean, like, it's slightly more challenge, because obviously we have frameworks to evaluate like the EVM deployments by themselves, but those frameworks are unavoidable, like link like to EVM characteristics. In the case of the one non-EVM, like this changes a bit, but I think that we can adapt, because at the end of the day, it's more about having the procedures and the steps well defined, and then if you need to adapt some of the steps, well, I mean, it's just fine. But hopefully it will be, yeah, in the next months, I think